Hey, everybody. Welcome. Welcome, welcome. Can you see me? Can you see both of us, Jen?
Yeah,
Okay.
I mean,
I'll show let's see. I have
yeah.
my
Put it
pre
on gallery.
on gallery. You know what? I hid myself, but it's
Oh,
only for me.
yes, it is only for you. I see you just fine.
Okay,
Hey,
good.
everyone who's here.
Yes, well, comment in the chat and make sure you do everyone, okay? And I'm not seeing the chat, Jen.
I am.
I wonder now why not?
I
Because
don't
you were
know.
in as me.
Maybe. I know I'm in as you, but it
Oh,
shouldn't change anything. I've been in with you before and had it not as you. I've
down
done it
here.
multiple times actually.
Huh.
But is it
It's not
not even
showing me the
so that
chat.
not even in the side?
Mm-mm. Mm-mm.
I wish there was something that we could do. Hi, everybody. We're having some issues. We're having some technical issues. But that doesn't mean you shouldn't say hi in the chat. Say hi. Tell us where you're from. I see lots
Yes,
of you
hi.
joining. I'm gonna see if there's something I can do.
Okay, now I can see them.
Oh, good.
I can
Yay.
see them. So good. So hi, A. I don't know why I couldn't see them before. Maybe I hadn't picked it. We're so glad that you're here. And how are you doing? Why
Yeah.
don't you check in what you're struggling with? Because there was something about this, the title of this that, hi, Cheryl. I'm Cheryl too. So from Delaware. So there was something that you wanted to get out of this workshop. So we would love to know that before we launch in. Hi, Nadine. Hi, Leanne. Northern Ireland, Alberta, Canada. I love that. And this is how it's going to work, okay? Just to give you a little bit of overview. Hi, Michelle, one of our new members. We're going to plan on this being 45 minutes to an hour where Jen is going to share with you. And during this time, what I want you to do is any questions you have, any challenges you're having, put it in the Q&A. And then at the end, we will go back and we will answer questions. And Jen will answer your questions, and I can answer your questions as well, because we're here for you and we want you to leave today feeling encouraged. We want you to learn some things that you can try with your own strong-willed, disrespectful tween or teen. So um, that's how it's going to work today. So Christine, Charlotte, I have a 14-year-old son, 28-year-old daughter, and 32-year-old son. We swing from great interactions for a few weeks to difficult interactions with our 14-year-old. Did you want to say something, Jen?
Well, there's two things. I totally get Christine, what she's talking about. Totally. So this will be good for you. And the second thing I want to say is, hi, Liz. I see you. I miss you. I haven't seen you in so long. So Liz is here, you guys, and she's in the inner circle, and she has been in my small group before. So we've done some like small group coaching together, and she's really fantastic. So,
Yes, I'm so glad to see Liz too. Jen, you have to turn off your music.
oh, sorry.
We work
Oh,
together all the time. Those of you that don't maybe know, it's Jen and I are both a team. We're business partners in crime, and so we talk all the time. And I'm one of those people. She has her music always playing, and I get really easily distracted. So she's got it in the background, my brain. Those of you that know what I'm talking about starts going, oh.
yeah. Well, and it's funny too because when we work together, sometimes I'll try and put on some like instrumental music that's, it's fun, like Brazilian music or whatever. I'm like, is this okay? She's like, as long as I don't know the words.
Yeah, because I want to sing along.
Right?
So
So,
I want to read a few more of these and then we'll
yes.
jump in. Okay. Okay, I want to make sure we end up with a strong bond and that I don't damage our relationship in the few years I have her still at home.
Ding,
Yeah,
ding, ding.
yeah, ding
Yep.
ding is right. Yeah, Liz misses us too. So Let me see. I want to make sure that I didn't miss anything. So, whatever reason you're here, we're just so happy you are, because having a disrespectful, which I understand that well, and strong-willed tweener teen where you are butting heads all the time, where you feel like they hate you, where you feel like you've lost that connection with them and you're never going to be able to get it back and it's too late, temper tantrums, slamming doors. Um, yeah, you're going to hear about a lot of it today. And I hope that you're going to feel encouraged and know you're not alone with whatever you're going through with your kid, and that there is hope and you can turn things around. We want you to know you can. So why don't we just launch in? And yeah, Monica said all of the above. Why don't we just launch in? And Jen, why don't you start out by introducing yourself? I think most of you know me, but don't know Jen. So Jen, take it away.
So hi, I'm Jen and I work with Cheryl. I did start with her a very, very long time ago. Before she did online stuff, she was doing in-person things and I was working on her website and doing her social media, and we were working really well together. So she asked me if I would come and also help her with her in-person meetings because they involved a lot of papers, like handouts. Like right now you get them as downloads, but then we had them as handouts. We had to organize them. We'd have some snacks, whatever. So I would come and I would help her. But I always felt like I was a Cheryl helper. I wasn't part of the moms that came for help. So I was in the beginning, I was just kind of a lurker. But what would happen is I would learn these things over and over again because Cheryl would be teaching boundaries. And then in another 6 weeks, she would teach boundaries again, or teach like, how to listen. And then in another 6 weeks, it would be listening again. So like through the years, I have become quite well versed in all of this. So besides this helping like a back end, I do everything. I do everything on the back end. If you need help, you'll be talking to me. So anything technical, whatever, I do all of that. But I've also come to start working with some of the moms because now it's been, well, we just did the math. So it's been 9 years, like 8 or 9 years that I've been working with Cheryl. So 8 or 9 years that I have been watching at the same workshops twice a year. So, and she says to me, don't you get sick of it? And I'm like, believe it or not, in the past 8, 9 years, I learn something new every single time, or get the reinforcement that I need. That's just I mean, we're going to fall back on our behaviors. I just did. I don't remember even what it was. And I said to Cheryl, I was like, I did everything wrong about this, but I just couldn't help it. So, sometimes that's just going to happen. And so, anyway, through that, I've started working with moms too in our group because there are some very specific um, issues that I feel very called to help moms with, and that I feel very well versed in. So, especially when it comes to boundaries in your kids. So yeah, that's who I am. So I'm around. I'm in the group. If you need to chat in the group in our app, I'm there. And you can even tag me there if you have technical problems. You don't have to email me. So you could just tag me in the community too. So is that enough of who I am? I tried to
Yeah,
do
that's
fast.
great. And then, yeah, and we would not be here without Jen. So
Oh,
we would
we
not.
wouldn't be here without you.
Yeah. So it's just been such a blessing having her here and just hearing her story and all that she's gone through. And I want to have you go back in time, Jen, to what it was like. We were talking about, I said, how old was Isaiah? Now he was born strong-willed. Who knows that?
Yes.
When the chat has a kid that they just came out of the womb
Oh yeah.
strong-willed.
Yep.
Susan's raising her hand. I
Yeah.
mean, you say, I remember with my daughter, it was like, don't, this was before I even understood natural consequences. And I was like, don't touch the hot stove,
Yep.
don't touch it. And then they run as fast as they can and they touch it,
Oh
oh my gosh, we're in
yeah.
trouble.
It's crazy. I mean, he was from the day. We actually have a picture of him from when he was probably like 8 or 9 months old. He had this face. We called it Evil Boo. And it was like, you could tell he was strong-willed just from that picture. It's actually the picture I sent in when he's a freshman in college now. And when he got accepted to school, his high school wanted a baby picture to put with the acceptance on their Instagram. And that's the picture I sent in because it just epitomized his personality. And yeah, he was from the day he was strong-willed. He had to control everything and everybody and was loud and was climbing on furniture. And like you said, Cheryl, like he actually set a fire in our house once because it was like, don't touch the fire, don't touch the fire. And he decided he was going to make a torch like Indiana Jones. And I was cooking and I must have turned for 30 seconds and he lit that torch on fire and ran down the basement stairs like Indiana Jones would go down the stairs in the dark with the torch. But then the torch, he made it out of, by the way, very smart kid, of course. I think all of our kids who are like this, they have that like intelligence. He made it out of a paper towel roll with paper towels in the top. So as it burned, though, it started to get hot. So he dropped it at the bottom of the stairs, and I smelled something burning and ran downstairs, and he's just standing there staring at it.
Oh gosh.
What? So yeah,
And there was the beginning, right?
I don't know. That was like,
A
yeah,
rough road. And isn't it nice we can laugh now because when you're going
yes,
through that painful, and some of you are in it where you're in the pain of it right now. It is not funny. It is just keeping you up at night. You're crying behind closed doors, or maybe you're crying all the time wherever you're going. I mean, it's just painful.
yeah.
And talk about that painful time, like what was happening. It
You
was
know,
when he turned, you were saying like when he turned 10, it really started,
yeah,
things.
I think that's when like the anger part of it really came out. So up until that point, he was just very controlling. And it was really hard to make things go how you wanted them to go because he was already fighting and badgering like up until that point. But he was young enough for a while that it was still listening because consequences were like seemed more real to him then. But when he got to be like 10, um the anger got a lot worse where he would get so angry sometimes I would like be afraid of him. He would act out. So there were a couple things. Like I'm going to start from less to more. Like it was the controlling thing. Like that was something where he just always seemed to need to be in control of everything that was happening. And if it wasn't, he would blow up. Like you had to do things his way. The other thing that happened a lot was that he was like aggressive with his friends. I actually tried to talk to him about this the other day, and he's like, I don't know what you're talking about. He has no memory of that being the way that he interacted with friends. I mean, my sister even said, you would terrorize the kids at the treehouse at the mall. Our mall has like a treehouse that all the little kids play in. And, she was like, you would empty that thing out and parents would just be horrified. So, but he has no memory. He doesn't believe that he was that way. But he was. And so then he also, was badgering. That's when the badgering really started. Like badgering was kind of mild when he was younger because it was just, he was young, it was fun, whatever. But that's when the badgering really started and was really bad, where he would follow me around constantly with something that he wanted or, and he wasn't getting and just trying to wear me down. And then that's when the anger came in, like when he didn't get what he wanted. It was like a switch would flip and he went from badgering to like I remember the very first thing that he did that I realized like this anger is out of control. And he threw a mug at my head and he wasn't close enough to hit me, thank goodness. Like he did it from across the kitchen and I saw it coming. Plus, I don't think he would have hit me anyway. I think that the his aim wasn't good enough. But that was like, I was like, holy moly. Like, this is intense that he would do something like that. And the anger started to happen more frequently at some point where I started to get, this, and that was like just kind of fast forward. And I'm going to just stop there and say, because I know we're going to touch on it more in a little bit, but it became scary to me as he got older and harder to control, bigger, that
Mhm.
anger was still around, and it started to really become scary as opposed to just like, what am I doing wrong? So,
Yeah. So let's backtrack a little bit. What was that like for you as far as you're cleaned out the play area, like seeing how people were reacting to him? And
so hard. I mean, everything was hard. You know, I couldn't control him, and I knew I couldn't. And I knew I was being judged by other parents. When we would go to places like that, I knew I was being judged. If we were having a play date and he just could not, it wasn't so much that he was just like a mean kid. I mean, that wasn't what it was. He needed to control the play date. If he had a play date, or a hangout, whatever we're calling it these days, he had to be in control. He had to decide what was going to be done, how they were going to play. And if he didn't like it, then he would like, I don't know that he would be rough, but sometimes he would be rough with the kids. Other times he would just yell at them or whatever, or just refuse to play. So I know I felt like those parents were judging me. And actually, I'm pretty sure they were. It's not even like I felt like they were. I knew they were, at the park. And so like, I started to dread those times. Like, I would dread taking him to the park, but knowing that I needed to, but thinking what park has the least kids at this time, and those were the parks I would choose. And I don't think I ever told you that, but like, we have a lot of parks in our area. So I would try and pick the ones where I felt like he could play the most by himself without needing to bring other kids into his game, where I'd seen him just do his own thing. Um, I kept everything from my family when things were getting bad. My family had no idea that he ever threw a mug at my head. And when I mean family, I mean extended family. Obviously, my husband was privy to some of this information. I think I kept it from him in the beginning too, because I didn't want him to judge Isaiah. But my family, they were judging him already because of the behavior that they saw. So I was definitely not going to feed that. So I was like feeling so alone. I had nobody to talk to about it. I had no one. And I was so sure that there was something horribly wrong with him. And I didn't have anybody to talk to about it. And it was lonely and sad. And I was like in despair. And yeah, I didn't know what to do. So,
how lonely, where you felt like, and I feel sad even hearing that. And I just want to know if anybody feels comfortable sharing who is feeling that way, that you can't talk to anybody about this for fear of being judged. You want to tell your family. I'm even thinking don't want to even tell your husband where I'm relating because I don't want them to overreact.
yeah,
Right? I don't want
exactly.
them to blow up and then it to become bigger and to feed that forest fire already.
Yeah.
And also, you know, having a mom where you feel like they're judging you or they are judging you, go, Jen, just get a hold of your kid.
Well, right. I would hear that all the time. Like, why can't you just control him? Like that, that sentence, I think I heard a million times. Why can't you just control him? Why? And that, or the like really helpful feedback. Well, how come you don't take this away from him? Why don't you take this away from him? Everybody thinking that they know how to discipline your child. And what they didn't understand is that that just made it worse. Like, I was having a really hard time finding a way to give him consequences that just didn't make everything worse. You know, I mean, I think that what happens in that time period of your life, if you're going through that, is you're actually more lenient than you want to be because you're so afraid of what's going to happen if you do try and put a consequence in place, if you do punish them, if you do take something away, everything just gets worse, which is, of course, why you don't tell your spouse. If you don't tell your spouse, is because just like what you said, Cheryl, it's like they just think that they can jump in and control the situation, not understanding that they make it worse too. So, yeah. And I mean, so it was like, you know, I stopped being around people. We stopped having, and Isaiah didn't understand. And that was really hard too, because he would ask me if he could have a play date with this person or that person. And I would be like, oh, they're busy. Oh, they can't, whatever. So I'm all alone in my sadness. And even when I met you, I didn't tell you about it at
I
first. I
know.
mean, and you would have been the one person who would have understood. But I was so terrified about, like, I wanted to seem like I had my shit together. Sorry. I wanted to seem like I had it together. And there was, I didn't at home. I did not have it together. And I really felt like I was doing my best and that I had this kid. And I was just so afraid. Like, I was afraid that he was going to wind up in some like inpatient or outpatient, whatever, inpatient thing program. I had, you know, like I would Google things and be like, does he have oppositional defiant disorder or whatever? Like, and I would look at him and be like, but he doesn't. He's so wonderful when he's not bad. And that's the other thing. And bad. I use that word, of course, back then. I don't use it now. But when things were good, they were great. And
Mhm.
that's really a hard part too. When things were good, they were great. And
Yeah.
he was my wonderful little boy, and he was loving and kissy and wonderful, and everything was great. It wasn't like things were bad all the time. It was just like in those moments where he wanted something. I mean, that
Yeah.
was really when he wanted something, whether it was wanting something that I could give him or wanting something I wanted to take away, like, don't climb on the furniture. Why can't I climb on the furniture?
Oh,
Well,
yeah.
if you climb on the furniture, you're going to get hurt. I'm not going to get hurt if I climb on the furniture. Well, you don't know. You could fall down. I'm not going to fall down. Isaiah, you have to get off the furniture. I'm not getting off of the furniture. Like, this was, you know, so it was
Constant.
also that. It wasn't just, you know, like I want a toy. Sometimes it was I want to be doing this thing. Don't, I'm not going to stop, you know. I'm going to be chasing the dog around the house. It's making the dog crazy. It's not making him crazy. No, it is making him crazy. Watch, look at him. He's crazy, you know. I always
Yeah.
say you broke him with my first dog who's like nippy with people. I'm like, you broke him.
Oh gosh. And
So,
and it's I laugh, but oh, when you're in the thick of it and the dog is scared of them and
yeah,
and they're running and just the arguing, the
the constant arguing. And that's
well,
why I say, like,
why? Or insatiable, like wanting,
yeah,
wanting, wanting things. And what's resonating so much with moms is just also that piece that you're talking about, that walking on eggshells because
yes,
I don't want to upset
yes, yes.
him and how he's going to react. And so it becomes this vicious circle of
Yeah,
trying to walk on eggshells. And then what happens if I don't give him what they want, what he
yeah,
wants,
yeah,
which, yeah, then it's going to erupt in all this anger.
right,
And
right.
yet the more that we do give into it, then the worse it can make it as well, because we don't want to
Yeah,
upset.
yeah,
Yeah. So they're saying, yeah, they're talking all about, how, yeah, my 14-year-old would kick me or throw things at me
mhm,
when she gets mad. She only does this to me. She doesn't do it to my
yes,
husband.
yes,
Yeah,
yes,
I feel you, Jen. That's so hurtful too, because it's like, why are they only doing it to me and they're not doing it to them?
yep,
Um, I'm avoiding people going on holidays, friends, because of my daughter's outbursts.
yep,
Hmm.
yes. And also, Yeah, I see Kath, like why do you let your son act this way? Like totally people saying that to me. Why do you let and I'm like, I don't let him do anything. And also he was verbally abusive to me as like, you know, he would tell me that I was garbage. He would tell me I was fat. Like he would just say anything he thought would hurt me too. Sometimes it wasn't the physical stuff. Oh, but often it was both, especially if I would go in my bedroom and lock my door so he couldn't get to me when he was trying to hurt me. And I would just sit on the other side of the door and he would just pound on that door and let me in, you're garbage, you're this, you're that. And it was like part of why I felt so alone is I was, he and I always felt we're kind of a team. He was just, we were so happy when we were happy and we would have fun and we'd do fun things together. And so when he was being like that, part of the loneliness was like, who is this kid? I don't know him. And
Mm,
I have this wonderful relationship with the other kid who's not doing that. And
mhm.
and so that was it too. I'm like, if I don't have him, what do I have? I have nothing. I am alienated from all of my friends, from my family. At least I have him when things are good, but when they're bad, I have nothing. I have zero. So it's been, yeah, it was,
And he's an only child.
he is an
too.
only child. Yes. And I would
So,
say it was by far the darkest point in my life. Just that lasted a long time, by the way, guys. I don't know if you recognize that this is kind of where this is going. I mean, it lasted until he was 13, like late 13. So,
where it started
almost
turning around.
14.
Yeah. And
Yeah,
he also was diagnosed with quite a few things. So
he
tell them
was.
a little bit about he had sensory
He
processing.
had, yes. I mean, at an early age, we realized he had sensory processing disorder. He had like a lot of, behavior, like avoidance behaviors. And also he had what's called sensory seeking behaviors, which I just want to let you know at 19, he still has sometimes. And sensory seeking was like making a lot of noise, like banging on things, like the yelling a lot, like that tends to be sensory seeking. They're wanting to make things happen. So he had that, and then later he was diagnosed with something called PANDAS, which is an autoimmune disease that sometimes can create like physical issues or mental issues. Like he had OCD for a while, and um, he also had a tic disorder because of it. And they say that that can also create like angry outbursts, like unexplained angry outbursts. So it's like, it's kind of a chicken or egg scenario to me. Like, which could it be? Could it have been just him? Could it have been the pandas? I mean, that's something we don't know. I would say that when we started treating the pandas, it's not like I saw a change right away in that part of him. I did see a change in some of the other physical things, but not so much that. So he did have those. And I think that, and he has ADHD too, by the way, for the people who are saying that. We didn't know he did at the time. And Isaiah was homeschooled when he was younger, so it really never would have
You
come
say
into
it's
play.
dyslexia. He has
Oh, and
dyslexia.
he has dyslexia, yes. And Anna, in the beginning, they did give him antibiotics, and then we also discovered that he had a real ferritin deficiency, like a huge ferritin deficiency. So we treated that too. Um,
How
so
exhausting too, I want to acknowledge for the
oh,
parents, just how looking for the answers everywhere, like looking online, Googling, researching, taking them to this doctor and that psychologist and this psychologist, and then having them, diagnosed with things exhausting.
it's
So
and just being the parent of a kid like this is exhausting. It was exhausting having to argue with him all the time, having him badger me, follow me around the house. It wasn't just like the anger part. I mean, yes, that existed, but the other pieces, once the anger was gone, by the way, that was just the anger being gone. The badgering didn't end. I mean, I have always said that like he is his ability to have an argument is just Like he should be an attorney. It's he can come at you from all sides, and that is exhausting. That was exhausting. Everything. I was exhausted. I was mentally depleted completely, and it was affecting me too.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
like just I didn't want to do anything. I was like, but I don't want to say like that wasn't my 100% life. There was like during the good times, it was good. You know,
Yeah.
we could go weeks. We could go
Yeah.
weeks without
Mhm.
a huge outburst. Not that he didn't badger me about something or whatever, but without a big outburst, we could go weeks without one.
Mhm. Thank you for saying that, Jen, because it's not black or white, right? There's good too. But
Yeah.
I think that just the times when things are good, then when they're bad, and then when you feel that way, then that can just heap on more guilt.
Hmm.
Because then it's like, I don't, like my kid. And then we don't want to even say that out
Oh,
loud
yeah.
because we love them, but I really don't like my kid. And you use the word bad. We don't say that because we know there's no bad kids.
Right.
There's just kids that are struggling.
Right.
How do we reach them and how do we support them? And how do
Right.
we support ourselves? So maybe that's a perfect transition, unless you're
Yeah.
seeing something that you want to comment on.
Well, I think, oh geez, I turned off my thing, but apparently alarms still work when you are when you turn off your phone. Let
Good
me,
to know.
yeah, exactly. Um, so, well, I don't know if you were going to kind of go into this because I think it's important for me to touch on like what I was doing that wasn't working.
Yes. So yes. So let's start there. What wasn't working?
Yelling was not working. Like all yelling would do would
Yeah.
be get yelling back. Like it didn't like I would raise my voice, he would raise his voice, and he would win the yelling thing. Like cuz I would get exhausted and be like this is not working and then he would just keep with the yelling, or get angry with me. And if I yelled, it would just kind of make it worse. The like angering thing. And then I would say that like trying to get him to see my way, trying to convince him of
We
why.
talk a lot about that. Yeah,
Yeah.
how exhausting that is.
Yeah.
Did you
I
ever
mean,
say, "Oh yeah, mom, you're right"?
yeah, right. Exactly. No. Then like and um just like flat out punishing him for things, not really like it was a little while in before I learned about consequences, which is different than punishing. And like just randomly taking things away or
Oh, it's so easy to do.
oh my
I
gosh, I'd be like, I'm gonna take this away. Fine, I'm gonna take I there was a point, and I've heard other moms say this, where every single toy that kid had was locked in a closet. Every toy. It was the cleanest his room and playroom had ever been because everything was locked up. And it didn't matter. He'd be like, I don't care. I don't care. Like he would literally say, I don't care, take it. I don't care, take it. And it could be gone for weeks. And he would just color and
yeah.
he didn't care. And it didn't change his behavior one bit.
Yeah, and
Just
now
fine.
it's the pads, it's the iPads.
Yeah.
Who's going through that? Yeah, Suzanne, I don't care is the worst. It is. It's like, and that is
Yeah.
their attempt to have control and power. I
Mhm.
don't care.
And
Take
it
power.
works because
It
guess
does.
what? They didn't care. And I did all this and it didn't work. And so, like, also some of the things that, like, I would say that I did that didn't work, and this was kind of like some of them were as he got a little bit older, but he was so difficult when family gatherings would happen, just so difficult. And I was afraid that he would act up, that he would do something that would bring judgment on me. But also, he would fight so hard about not wanting to go to things that eventually I just, like in the beginning, I would force him to go. And that just would make things worse because the way he would act when he got there, like he didn't want to go, he didn't want to go, he didn't want to go. And I'd be like, you have to go, you have to go, you have to go. But eventually, like I said, like the judgment that eventually I just said, fine, don't come, and actually
Remember that.
that turned out to be a win, which I didn't realize was going to be a win, but it actually turned out to be a win for both of us. So that was like an interesting little thing because forcing him to come wasn't helping either of us. Um, but what then? Like being overly involved, that didn't work. Like trying to control the situation did not
Oh,
work. Me trying to create a safe environment for a play date, like overly pre-teaching. Like they used to say pre-teach, right? So talk about but like I would get so involved and I would actually like listen, always make them keep the door open, like, and then just jump in a lot when that didn't help. So, oh, and bribing him, that never helped either. Man, I always thought it would. Every time. I did that for years. I never stopped. I never learned my lesson. Never. Because you know what wound up happening? When you bribe them, they finally figure out that they can bribe you, I'll go if you get me this. So it's like it started out with, if you go, I will get you this. And then it was, I'll go if you get me this. And there is a change, there is a difference between those two things. Here I'm in control, or I think I am, and here he's in control. And like I can't tell you how many points we got at the Lego store. I mean, like, if you go to therapy, I will go to the Lego store and buy you any Lego set under $40. Like it got to that point too, and that's no good. So, I mean, I was doing a lot of things.
yes,
If I were doing a lot of things that were working, we wouldn't be here right now talking about this.
yes. Well, and Kay is saying she has, a daughter that she's more of a typical teen. A 14-year-old who can be disrespectful, argumentative, not take responsibility. And we both get angry and yell and scream. So even though this might feel like it's more extreme, which it is, strong will, defiant, disrespectful, what we're going to talk about, what Jen's going to talk about is these things work for both kids.
Yes.
So let's talk, Jen.
I was just going to quickly say, not only that, when my son was 14, he was acting more like a typical teen. The anger part was over by then, but that doesn't mean like that was gone, but he still had all those disrespectful behaviors. So just so you know, like Cheryl said, we're going to move into now what's going to matter for every kid.
Yes, exactly. So he was kind of coming out of that, right? And so there were things that you were doing, because I remember the first time when you said, oh, you can stay home from the family function.
Yes.
You went, and then all of a sudden he was calling you and saying, can you come get me? And you're like, no, because you gave him a choice.
Yes.
And how powerful that is. We often think we're giving in. So that was one of the changes you made. What else were you starting to practice that you saw things were starting to turn around?
I spent more time listening to him and less time just like talking over him or trying to, like you think when they're badgering you, they're just badgering you, and like they're just badgering. Like it goes from 0 to 60 really fast, but there's something they're saying. They are saying something. And if you spend some time listening, so this is like a combination of how I got how I dealt with the badgering thing. And what I started to do is say, and this is part of the listening thing and all the listening stuff I learned from Cheryl, is that I would say, okay, I will listen to you for 5 minutes. I'm going to set a timer and I'll listen to you for 5 minutes. You can say whatever you want. I will hear your piece. I will listen. I won't talk over you. I won't try and explain or anything or give my side. I'm just going to listen. And then I would say to him, so I'll give you 5 minutes. And then I might chime in with my own thing. So you're going to have to listen to me. I'm going to listen to you. And then I'd like you to listen to me. And the listening thing really made a huge difference because I would, feeling heard was a huge part. I didn't realize how much of the problem that was, how deep that went. And, when you think about it as an adult, certainly that's such a hurtful thing when we feel like we're not being heard. So imagine when you're a kid, because I think most kids, it's not even just kids who are disrespectful and angry. Most kids go through life, their young life, feeling like they're not heard, or have a time period in their life where they feel like they're not being heard. So, that was kind of the thing with the saying you can stay home if you don't want to go. I mean, that was me hearing him say, I don't want to go, I don't want to go, I don't want to go a million times. Do I have to go? Okay, no, you can stay home. And when he felt heard, he was like, oh, wait, like I don't need, wait, what just happened, But with the other stuff, it was just really important because there was some need he had and I didn't know it. And sometimes the need was just to be heard. There was nothing else to it. It was just, this is what I have to say. And just by letting him talk, that often was enough. Um, Not trying to control him, that was really huge, and it was very hard. And it was something that I learned from Cheryl's boundaries stuff, was like really, what I could just, what was his responsibility and what was not my responsibility. A lot of it was, letting him have natural consequences for things. And that was really hard. And sometimes it was actually things like, okay, if you're going to walk on the couch, I'll let you walk on the couch for like 15 minutes. I'll let you walk on the couch. And if he fell, I'd be like, oh, well,
And
no,
yeah, yeah,
like,
yeah. And some might not want their kid walking on the
right.
couch. But that said, it's like letting go, right? That's a big part that feels very scary with kids this age, is letting them make choices like homework, if they're
Yeah,
going to study,
totally.
what,
I stopped that.
within boundaries. So,
Yeah. I stopped doing his homework with him. That was a huge one. We talk about that a lot in some of our just very simple, like single blog posts, single issue blog posts. And it was like I stopped doing his homework with him. And I talked to the principal about like how we were always angry, fighting about homework. And she said, "Why are you doing his homework with him?" And I'm
yeah.
like, because he needs help. And she's like, well, that's what school is for. And I'm like, okay. Like that was so hard for me to
Well, especially hard when
so
your
hard.
kid has a learning difference.
Yes.
Like
Yes.
dyslexia, that
Yes.
was very difficult having an ADHD daughter that was very
Yeah.
strong-willed. And it was hard because it was like this, if she didn't hand in her homework, then I would see would get really anxious because she would get really behind. And then that's when the outbursts would start. So I was always kind of trying to help her along to keep her, so that
Yeah.
wasn't happening. But a lot of the anxiety was because of how I was handling it.
Hmm.
And so I think we fuel so much of it we don't realize based on our own anxiety. And then our kids feel it. And then as a result, they start yelling, like,
Yeah.
leave me alone, get out of my room.
And I then had the opposite effect for a little while, which is when he was having trouble with homework or didn't get a great grade, he would blame me for not
Oh,
helping him. So it's like you create these patterns that become very hard to break. And so it really is about sticking to your guns. And if like in situations where he was blaming me, to listen, like what was it? What was upsetting him? Why exactly? Like what about not helping him? And kind of, in that sense, supporting, because I think, one of the things we talk about is how instead of controlling your child, you can coach your child,
yes.
and instead of saying, like, when he's freaking out about homework and blaming me, saying, okay, I hear that. Is there someone else who can help you with your homework?
Yeah.
Maybe we can brainstorm about where you can go for help with your homework. Because when we work together, it doesn't seem to be very productive. And
Yeah.
I want you to be able to be productive. So, a lot of that was like, you let the consequences happen, but that doesn't mean you have to let them fail or suffer. You don't have to help, they don't have to suffer. It's just about how we're communicating with them. There's this difference between controlling what they're doing and micromanaging them.
Yes. I do this whole thing in the inner circle where we talk about boundaries. If I can just insert something, Jen, where we can feel so black or white. It's like we have to get in there and we're micromanaging things and we're trying to control things. And of course we do that. We love our kids versus, and this is the thing with strong-willed kids, this is the thing with all of us, and especially at their age, they want that autonomy. They want to be in control. And so when you have a strong-willed kid, it's like on steroids, right? So we have to allow them to have that autonomy and that choice. And part of that starts with number one, listening, like Jen's talking about, validating how they're seeing things as truth. It doesn't mean that you have to agree with them, but you're really hearing them. And then also being able to allow them to make some choices for themselves. Like, would you like my help?
Mhm.
Like Jen's saying, we give so much unsolicited advice. We get in there, we try to control, and we want to, once you start giving your kid more positive power, more positive control, then you start seeing things start turning around. Like even Isaiah with
Mhm.
leaving him home. I remember that so well, Jen. And he then called you, can you come get me? You're like, no, honey, I'm spending time with family.
Yeah.
And
I'd be in the middle of dinner. I'd be
yeah,
like, "Sweetie, I'm eating. The food is here. I'll bring you something home, you
yeah.
know?
So it's
I'll
not
bring
like you're
you-
unloving. I'll bring you something home. And then all of a sudden, Isaiah wanted to go again
Yeah,
with the
and he
family, and his
did.
behavior changed. We bring them, we force them, and then we wonder why they have a stink face on the whole time. And then
Mhm.
we're like, stop acting that way, this way. And,
Yeah,
we can get all angry, but it doesn't work. And
yeah,
so we have to think about that. They want to be independent. Who of us wants to be controlled? None of
right.
us. I don't want somebody to tell me
Yeah,
I have to do something.
yeah.
If you
Some
allow it to listen and then you're like, okay, well, I get that. I can get why you don't want to do that or whatever, or you're feeling anxious. Like, tell me what
Mhm.
you're anxious about. If
Right.
it's different, then I'm going to be like, okay, they just listened to me and I feel like I can move forward now.
Yeah. And I think that there's so many levels of where those things happen, where we feel, like because it's that micromanaging, it's that need to rescue them from feeling bad or feeling sad, um, when like there's also like Isaiah didn't want to go to school for a while. He had school refusal for a while. And that was another issue. And it was really hard for me in the beginning. I would just be like, you have to go, you have to go. But then I started like there were two pieces. I would listen to him tell me why he didn't want to go. And we would talk about um, you know, what that looked like. And I would ask him to brainstorm with me some things that he could do at school that might make him feel more comfortable. And what I did start to do is say, well, how about you just get in the car? Let's just get in the car. And then if we're in the car and you don't want to drive to school in like 15 minutes, we'll get out of the car.
Hmm.
And then it would be, let's just drive to school. If we're at school and let's sit in the car for like a half an hour. And if you don't want to get out, we'll go home. And I think that's really hard for parents to do. I think it's really hard for parents I think they feel like they're giving in
Oh,
when
yeah.
what we're doing is we're helping them find solutions. And sometimes that solution, it's not easy. We're not saying like, okay, I have a band-aid for you. Now let's brainstorm and find a different band-aid. It's not like that. It's, we're sometimes they're real problems for your kids that we think are no big deal. And I think that's also why sometimes we try and fix things is we look at something and we're like, what's the big deal? Just
Oh,
do this, right? Just do that. That's silly. Why, it's like these phrases we say to our kids. Oh, come on. That's ridiculous. Like you're afraid to do this. What's the big deal? Do it one time, and when you do it one time, it'll be fine. You'll see. Like even so much as you're afraid to go on that roller coaster, come on. It's like it can be so many levels of how we sorry, how we try and either like we belittle their challenges, tell them something is no big deal, right? Or we try and fix them and give them all these reasons, all these ideas about, well, just do it this way, or why don't you try this way, or blah blah blah. Not that you don't do it with them giving you feedback. You just say like, why don't you try this? Why don't you try that? Why don't, we talk about that like whole thing, the Brene Brown thing, where like sometimes people don't want, well, people never want unsolicited advice, and people never want to feel like something is no big deal that they feel like is a big deal,
Yes,
and
yes.
I saw somebody say that sometimes the letting go is harder on yourself, and I think that the letting go is always harder on the mom. It's
Yeah.
always,
Mhm,
because
mhm.
we're our kids are in this transition, just like you said, of needing us to not needing us. And we're like, keep
Yeah,
needing,
yeah.
keep needing
White
me. And
knuckle in it.
yeah,
Yeah.
and I think that
Hoping they're gonna fly,
yes,
running along behind them. I think of running down a runway.
yeah.
You're
Well,
kind
you
of,
also talk about it like we're driving in a car, and for the longest time they've been in the back seat, and now they're moving to the front seat, and eventually they're going to be driving the car. And, just as an analogy, not as like a reality, which it's also a reality, but, it's that transition is really hard. We want to say that it's not. Oh yeah, no, no, no. I know they're going to go through this thing, but it just isn't. And we don't realize what I mean, I think most of us don't realize what we're doing until we start undoing it. And that's when we start to see the changes. Is sometimes it's just one little thing. Like for me, it was one little thing, listening to him with not wanting to go to dinners. That was a huge thing. It was also, for me, it was hard because I was leaving him alone for the first time. That's when I left him alone for the first time, was when he didn't want to go to dinners, knowing I wasn't going to be far and I was only going to be gone for like an hour and a half. So I was like, okay, I'll let him stay home. But so it was the beginning. And I would say there's two pieces also to where we would run into trouble, which was me being inconsistent. Like I kind of didn't touch on that before, but me being inconsistent was very problematic, where I would say no to something and I would really stick to my guns, but then like the same
yeah.
kind of thing would happen in like a day or 2 days, and I would be so exhausted from whatever. Maybe it wasn't even him. Maybe I was just exhausted from a hard day's work, that I just let him do something that 2 or 3 days ago I said no to. Then next time I want to say no to it, what do I get? Well, last time you said fine. And I'm like, yeah, I know, but I mean, that's not you can't, that's kid logic, you know? And that's him using his kid logic against me successfully, you know? So
You're
not,
welcome, Suzanne.
yeah, so not being consistent is huge. But the other piece of it is that, that I want to say is when you're going through this, while sticking to your guns, like no matter what, is a really important thing. Like being consistent, when you set up a boundary and say, okay, I am okay with you watching YouTube for an hour, but you can't watch it until you're done with your homework. So if you watch your homework, we do this, right? That if
When you do
exactly
this, then you
right.
can go on and game.
Exactly. So if I'm really consistent about that, and then one day I'm so tired when he gets home that I would rather him be on YouTube than talk to me, I just destroyed like 2 weeks of work because, so the consistency is really important. However, you're going to fall off the wagon, and you
Mhm.
have to give yourself grace when that happens. You have to let yourself like make mistakes. We all make mistakes. And like I said in the beginning of this, I did a huge, I can't remember what it was. I want to try and remember because it was just this week. And I said to Cheryl, dude, I did everything wrong, like all the things
Yeah.
wrong.
Well,
And,
yeah.
it's like, and then I'm like, oh, well, I mean, he and I have set up a really good pattern right now that I think like when I do things wrong, he doesn't make me suffer as much as he used to. Oh, but they'll make you suffer for sure. Because because there's a crack and they can see through and they can stick their hand through and grab the control thing back. Okay, now I'm in control. Ha ha ha. Look what you did. So I think that, there's like so many things, like also just walking away from him and just saying, I'm not doing this with you right now.
We
Like
can
that
talk
was a huge
later.
thing too. Yep. I would say when you're ready to talk to me without yelling, I am here,
Yep.
but I'm not going to talk. And that's one where you have to stick to it. You just have to say, sorry, sweetie, I will talk to you. You just have to stop yelling.
Yep.
Or I will talk to you. You just have to stop badgering me about it. Let's just talk. I will listen.
And I just want to interject something because some moms were saying some things. It's really important to know that they're going to be upset if you say something that they don't, if you set a boundary and you tell them no. And what I think happens is we are so upset that they're upset that's when, as a result, we're trying to convince them why we set the boundary that we set, expecting that maybe they're going to get it in that moment and understand, but we're really not listening. So if we can validate that we get it, that they don't like it, if we can hear them on the front end, let's say my daughter used to want to go downtown Chicago with her friends. She's like 12. Of course it's a hard no, but like, okay, now tell me how that would go. Are there any parents going? Rather than like, what? Right. And just like freaking out that you would even ask it, hearing, and then like, I'm not comfortable with that. And understanding that to them, they want to be independent at this age. They want to be able to do what they want when they want it. So it's understandable that they're angry. And so when I didn't get hooked, if you came to the 3-day free training, I talked about try not to get hooked, which we're going to, but they can hook us and then we're off to the races. And then we're trying to convince, like Jen was saying, you get into these power struggles and it's exhausting. And so just knowing that helped me so much. Like,
Mhm.
okay, they don't like this and that's all right. It's
Right.
like, it's okay that they're upset, giving permission for that.
Yeah. And that happens a lot of different ways. And it is really hard to be okay with them being upset with one of your boundaries for sure. Because especially when you have like a little attorney as a child, because they will tell you all the reasons why that boundary should not be in place. I know that with Isaiah, he wasn't allowed to go to Lollapalooza, not even this year when he was 18. And I would get the I'm an adult
Mhm.
argument. I would get the, well, I can just go if I want to. All my friends are going, like all of that. And I think this was one of the first times I felt like, I think this year was the first time that boundary was successfully there without any arguing. He said to me this year when all of his friends were going to Lollapalooza, and I'm like, okay. So, you know, like I didn't want to be like, oh, so you don't want to go? Like, I didn't want him to be like, oh,
Yeah.
blah, blah. And he's like,
Like
yeah.
you won.
And he said, yeah, Mom, you've been right all these years. Like, right, we say we'll never hear that from our kids, but that's actually not 100% true. You might hear it somewhere far down the line. You always hear like, you'll thank me later, right?
Yeah.
But
Oh,
this
no,
one
I
time he's
won't.
like, Mom, you're right. I mean, I have no desire to go to something like that, so
And those are those moments that you're like, What?
so I'm like, can I get my phone and record that?
Oh my gosh. I have to tell this story about, and we're going to move into questions, but I have to tell this story about my daughter, my oldest, Sarah. Some of you heard, she's now 34. But the crazy thing, and I hope this will encourage you, is she was in college and her sister's 9 years younger. So her sister was in the background when she called me, fighting for me to say yes to something. And it was a hard no. And I'd listened, I'd done my little listening to her, and I'm like, honey, I'm sorry, but I'm not comfortable with that. I know you want to go badly, but I'm not comfortable. And I was so clear. And my Sarah calls me and she hears it and she goes, Mom, do not cave in like you did with me. And it blew me away because here was a kid that fought me like Isaiah, fought Jen tooth and nail to get her way, would follow me around, would be like, why? And then I'd start doubting my no. And then I'd be like, okay. And I'd give in. And then it made it that much bigger. I remember when I finally got clear on the whole boundaries thing, it took like 4 hours of badgering. It was like you said, like retraining, and just allowing her to be upset. But I didn't want her to be upset because I felt so disconnected from her. Like I did. You don't want to say you want to be your kid's friend, but it was very uncomfortable for me when she didn't like me. And
Mhm.
it was so upsetting. And so I wanted to get, in her good graces versus like, no, just set the boundary and let her be upset. So
Yeah.
maybe some of you are relating to that.
Yeah. And I would say too is that, that's where like that normal teenage behavior is that they're gonna badger you. They're gonna ask for things that you want to say no to. Um, and I think sometimes one of the things that we didn't really touch on, but I think that one of the things that is important is knowing why you want to respond, why you do. Like, why do you want to say no to that? And recognizing if maybe you're putting a boundary in place that doesn't even belong there, that is your fear. Maybe it's just I want to ride. I remember I was really afraid of Isaiah riding bikes around town. I really was. I don't know why I was. I was afraid he was going to get kidnapped or whatever. And all his friends are riding bikes around town. They're like 10, 11, 12 years old. And I wouldn't let him. And there came a point, like when he was like a little older, like he was probably 12 or 13, the first time I let him ride by himself. And I realized like that's me. I'm scared about something that I should not be putting on him, that it's perfectly normal for a kid. We live in an extremely safe neighborhood. There's very little crime where we live. And it is not unreasonable. I mean, I see like 8-year-olds riding around town without parents or whatever, and it was not unreasonable. And it had been my fear that was trying to put this boundary around him. And instead, it was like more like a cage. So I think that it's important too to just think about it and to not be like, because I said so, but to really wonder why you're saying so.
Yeah.
So,
What's
and
the story that we're telling ourselves? We talk
yes,
about that. What's causing that fear? During the 3 day, I talked about
yep,
influence versus control, how we want to control. But I just want to say a lot of people don't know you here, Jen. Some do, but knowing your backstory, and this is where I want you all to be compassionate to yourself, is that you have a backstory. And I mean, he had terrible allergies. He was allergic to nuts. I mean, a lot of things that had happened with him that was scary. And
mhm,
so we can suffer from some trauma, whether it be big T trauma, little T trauma, that, oh my gosh, and we hear all the horrible stories out there, but I don't want anything to happen. It was like you were
yeah.
used to protecting
It
him
was to
all
protecting him.
the time.
Yes. He lived in a bubble for a long time because his food allergies. And I mean, for those of you that are closer to my age and have kids with food allergies, you know that like, 19 years ago, there was very little education around food allergies. People didn't understand them. Taking kids to birthday parties was a real issue. He was anaphylactic to eggs, which was a real problem. It was very hard. Um, I needed to bring cupcakes for him or whatever. I needed to go with him everywhere because when he was still young, like if the other parent didn't have a kid with food allergies, it was all bets were off. So I really did. I spent a lot of time kind of in this like hyper protective mode. And he had some other health things that came up too during this time period, you know. So all of that made things really hard for me. It made it hard for me to let go and to give him freedom and to, some of the natural consequences, if they happened within my house, I was okay. But, other than that, like that, it was not happening. So yeah, there was a lot going on. Um, but there still was, other things that I wanted to say no to sometimes that I was being irrational, and I just think that that's a lot of thing is we want to keep them young. We want to keep them
Yes,
here.
yes,
So we
yes,
will make a
yes.
boundary around something that really is a boundary that belongs around a 12-year-old, not around a 15-year-old, and
Absolutely.
so I think that that's something. And just also quickly around the fixing is that the fixing isn't always like how we think it is. Sometimes it's to keep them from feeling emotional pain. Like when we get in and if they're having problems with their girlfriend or their boyfriend, but his girlfriend, whatever, I heard that he had a problem at prom 2 years ago. I overheard that he had his heart broken, and I didn't overhear that on purpose. But then I was like, when is he going to come to me and talk to me about it? How can I make him feel better if he doesn't mention it to me? And like he barely like touched the surface of it with me. He just said, I'm not seeing Stella anymore. And I'm like, oh, okay. Do you want to talk about it? Nope. Okay,
Yeah.
well, if you want to talk about it, I'm here. Okay, fine, but I don't want to talk about it. And he never told me. This happened 3 years ago, and I still don't know what happened. And I have to be okay with that. Like, I can't, maybe someday he'll tell me, I'll be like, hey, remember prom when Stella didn't, whatever? Like, what was that? Maybe someday when he's like an adult, but I still don't know. So I think that there's a lot of, and like when he's had friend trouble and when he's had problems with teachers, he had some serious problems with teachers last year. I just had to like sit there and listen, and I couldn't, I wanted to fix it. I wanted to call the teachers. I wanted to get on the phone and be like, why are you being mean to my kid? Even though he was a senior. And I just had to be like, okay, well, what do you think you
Yeah.
can do about that? Do you have any ideas of like what you might say? Who can you go talk
You
to?
hear the coaching. I mean, there's a big difference. It's
Yeah,
coaching.
yeah. So, I mean, and even still, all along, and I wanted him to tell me everything. Well, what happened when you talked to your teacher today? You know?
Oh, yeah. Especially, and this is especially, and I want to move in, Jen, just for time,
Yes.
because I see a mom commenting here. But especially as they're pulling away, it can be a very painful process. They're not telling you as much. Like Isaiah wasn't telling you why, that they even broke up. And
Yeah.
so it hurts when you feel like they're pulling away, or is my kid okay? And how do I know they're okay? Because they're not talking to me. And that can be a very real thing, especially if you have a kid that's depressed. But I love the part, Jen, about asking ourselves. And that's one of the things that moms really interact around in our inner circle is they reach out to other moms and they ask, is this appropriate? This is my rule. Are they too old? Are they too young? What do you do when they're 17? It's just trying to figure all that out can be, tricky.
Yeah, it
Uh,
is.
And then you talked about the piece, and I never commented, I wrote it down about the importance of the reason that we want to not rescue them and we want to start giving them more ownership and more control and not getting in there and micromanaging is because when we're in there micromanaging, we're sending them the message we don't think they can do it, that we don't believe they're capable. And working with hundreds of moms, I can't tell you, and doing it personally myself with my oldest because I was scared. I was getting in the way and crippling her growth. I really was, because I was so in there and so afraid if I let go and I don't, do this, then she's going to fill in the blank. I would end up fortune telling, catastrophizing. But I was sending her this message. I don't believe in you. I don't believe you can do this. And then that starts becoming part of their identity. We fuel that anxiety that they have without knowing it. So
Mhm.
when you were even driving him to school and you were just not forcing, you were just like, let's just get in the car. What you were doing is you were helping him to feel empowered. You weren't forcing, but you were supporting. And they're two different things. So
Mhm.
then ultimately it became his choice.
Right. Yeah,
Yeah.
it did. And there were definitely times where I did though do that, where I definitely overfunctioned in certain areas. And I think that that's the thing. It's like you're constantly learning and you're constantly seeing, like, you don't always recognize where you're doing certain things. And like for us, we had a really big breakthrough just last year where he was like just really sick of a behavior I was doing, and he didn't know how to voice that to me, so he just stopped speaking to me. But it was like so I had to figure it out on my own, and I eventually did, with help from Cheryl, figure out where the whole thing was coming from. But it was like, in a way, I was taking credit for things that, like, I believed my support was helping him achieve. And in a sense, I wasn't wrong, but I was taking something away from him when I was doing it. And I think that we also don't always recognize when we need to let our kids stand alone, and when we need to let our kids shine. And while we put a lot of effort into these things, um, it belongs to them. And it's like a really, for me, it was like a very finessed boundary, because that's like a really tough boundary I think all of us face and don't realize. And not all of our kids are going to feel affected by something like that either. We won't, maybe we don't do it, or maybe you don't do it, or they don't mind. Sometimes kids just don't mind. But I think part of having a strong-willed, like, attorney for a kid is they're really attuned to certain things. And that was a real issue too. But you know um, it was a, an example of how we're still working on communication even then, and
Yeah.
how he didn't feel heard. So he was trying to tell me that up until that point. He was literally trying to tell me in his own way, and I didn't hear him. And so that's when he
Until
decided,
you,
okay, I'm going to stop talking to you then. If you can't hear me, if you're not listening to me, then I'm not going to listen to you at all. So
yeah. That
that
was a really hard time.
It was, and some of the moms in here were actually in my group while it was happening too. So they witnessed that. And actually, that wasn't last year. That was 2 years ago now, wasn't it?
Yeah, I know the time.
It's two
Well,
years.
Jen, I
Yeah.
want us to get, I don't want to cut you off. I just want
No,
us to
no.
get questions, but I really feel like it's important. Let's just tell them because it's going to close
Yes.
on Friday. We do have the inner circle. And we just want to tell you a little bit about that because, like Liz, who's in the inner circle, and we love her, she says, I still struggle with boundaries, but I keep working on it because this is, like you said, it does take time. And in order, and there's some moms talking like school refusal, like this is tough stuff. And we need support, we need help. Many of you maybe have that. I hope that you do have that kind of support, but we don't want any mom, any caregiver to go through where they're feeling so alone in what they're going through. And we have our kids home for such a short amount of time. And I kind of hate saying that, but it is true. And so we want to equip you to be able to help your kid too, not just yourself, but be able to help them as well. And so it has changed Jen's life. I started this when I got into a mom's group and it changed my life. And it was an in-person mom's group and led by a therapist. And so then I got trained in yada yada, but started Moms of Tweens and Teens. So I know how important, Jen knows how important it is to have support in our lives when we're going through this. So what would you say, Jen? Like if you were to
Well,
tell a little bit about it?
I would say that, and I say this all the time. So this is a truth because I say this behind closed doors to Cheryl all the time, is that Moms of Tweens and Teens saved my life. It saved my relationship with Isaiah. The the ability, even if you're a lurker in the community. So even if you don't chat and you don't, comment on things. Like for the most part, the teachings were what got me in the beginning. And then it really was hearing that other moms were struggling with it too. I remember there's someone in our community right now, and because I don't know if I have permission to say her name about this, I'm not going to. But she was actually in the in-person meetings back then. So she's been with us forever. And her son, it turned out it was like we had the same kid. I couldn't believe it. I was like, how is it possible that there is another child just like my child? And all of a sudden it was like, me too, me too, me too. Like as we got through and we created this online community, and here are these people who are struggling with similar things. And so, it went from just like these teachings being so precious. Every time I learned something new, every time I learned something, I would try and implement like maybe one thing and be like, oh my gosh, look at that. So I'm going to try something else. Oh my gosh, look at that, And then this, like the comfort of even Cheryl saying, you're going to fall off the wagon sometimes. It's not always perfect. So already knowing I'm going to go into it, I might make a mistake, but it's okay. And I have Cheryl's permission to make a mistake,
Because Cheryl makes mistakes still.
Exactly.
As we all do, we're not perfect.
Yeah. And then being in the community and being able to, put in my struggles like, hey guys, I'm dealing with this right now. Have any of you dealt with it? Or do you have any ideas? From my kid won't eat anything other than French fries and chicken nuggets to my kid just got suspended. It's like it runs the gamut. And to either be able to be the person posting it or to be able to be the person who can say, you know what, I went through that too. And this is what worked for me. Or, oh my gosh, I'm here for you, or I hear you, or, our
Reach
word
out
is
to me.
tender. But
Yeah.
yeah, or reach out to me if you need to, whatever. You just don't feel alone. You literally have a community. You have the community that you don't have at home, especially if you feel like you can't talk to anybody about anything. If you're keeping things from your friends or you're keeping things from your family because you don't feel like you can talk to anybody. Now, in hindsight, and now in my life, I have talked to everybody. I've told everybody what was really going on. But that's only because I started to feel comfortable because I realized that I didn't have like
Now
I
they're
wasn't
coming to
anything
you.
wrong. Yeah,
Now you have your family coming to you.
I do. I
Family that
do.
was like, get a
Exactly.
hold of your kid. Now they're
Yep.
like, oh, tell me, please
Tell me,
help.
what do I do? Yep.
Yeah.
But
So
yeah, so I mean, it has taken me to such a high level. And I know that there's moms that have been truly active members of our community for like 4 years now that we've become, that have really become a nice core group. And not to say there's a clique in here. I don't want anybody to think that it's anything like that ever. It's not. We are all one here together. But these moms have been through these teachings for so long and being in this group for so long that they are great. They're great support too. You have moms who have been going through it who think that the inner circle is worth so much to them that they have stayed with us for so many years. We've had a couple of them be like, I don't even do therapy anymore. I don't need it. All I need is this.
yeah.
So, there's always something. Cheryl's in there all the time. You can come with your questions. I always have questions. Now I have the hotline to Cheryl, so I don't always have to go into the lives I don't have to go in the lives anymore to get my Cheryl time. But, once a week you have direct access to her while she'll
I
totally,
do a live coaching call every week.
yeah.
Well, and thank you for Jen for that. But also we learn from each other. So on the weekly coaching calls, the moms that come, we'll talk about something and I'll say, share if you've gone through this and what have you done? And so that's the beauty. And I'm a big believer in therapy and coaching, and I do personal coaching as well. But you learn from a group. And so that's cool. And then we also go through this parenting success roadmap. And so we take it, now we're breaking it down where we do one for a whole month and we work on it. So we go through all of this and we have boundaries. We work on that, take a long time with the boundaries, but we talk about emotional connection. We practice listening and validating. we start out with how were you raised, which is really powerful because moms make all these connections because how we were raised, it feeds into how we parent. And so we really unpack that. That's one of my favorite things, and that what triggers us. And you have all these downloads, but here's the really exciting thing. We have an app now. So used to be, and you still can do it from your desktop, but you had to get into your membership from your desktop. Now, all you do is you go to your Apple or you go, I turned off my phone, to your Android, and you type in Moms of Tweens and Teens and you have your login. Yeah, and there, oh, you can't even see it very
I
well.
know, I can't make the light.
Inner Circle, and there's
Yeah.
all kinds of courses in there. And um, there's so much, I mean, and worksheets and things to do to create connection. And then we do workshops on a monthly, like we've got one coming up with Cindy Muchnick, the author of The Parent Compass. So we do book clubs in there. We also have a in-person meetup. It's on Zoom, but it's in person where you show up face to face. So you get to know these moms. And that's just beautiful too. We have circles now. So if you have an ADHD kid, you have a kid with anxiety, kid with autism, if you're a single mom, if you have a blended family, if you have an adopted kid, or a kid that is a foster kid, we have circles in there for you. So we're very excited about the app.
Yeah, it is. It's great. It's fun. And, we're still learning it too.
Yeah, it's
Good
brand new.
question.
Yeah. And so we're just starting and getting in there. And we had our first challenge last week to
Yeah.
introduce yourself. So that's really exciting. We used to be solely on Facebook. We still have that group going, but then we realized, it's hard to be on social media. There's so many distractions, and there's so much we can do with this app that we really are excited about it.
Yeah, definitely.
So what we decided is early bird's over. It ended last night, but I said, why don't we just give the people that are showing up on this call the link, and you can still get early bird just because you came. And if you're in a hard spot and you need support, there's a 14-day money back guarantee. So if you don't like it, you can get your money fully back, or you can join and you can quit at any time. I mean, we have moms that stay in there because they love it so much. But we want it to feel like, okay, I'm not going to be stuck there. I can really glean some of this good stuff. And then when you decide it's time for you to leave, you can go. So
We have lots of moms who came in for a month thinking they were going to cancel after 1 month and then stayed. You want to say hi, Stella? So while Isaiah and I were not speaking, I got this emotional support kitten who, there's a long story to why she looks so weird, but I always call her my emotional support kitten. And he was trying to help me name her through Kim. And I said to
I
Kim,
don't know who Kim is.
oh, Kim is my husband. So I said to him, I'm not taking any of these suggestions unless Isaiah wants to come to me directly and tell me what his suggestions for her name should be. And I'm joking about her being an emotional support kitten, but she turned out to be one because Isaiah wasn't talking to me when we got her. And she was now she's like mine. She's attached at the hip now. But I wound up naming her Stella, which turned out to be a real problem because, spoiler alert, Isaiah is now dating the same Stella that broke his heart at prom his junior year. So, so, so our cat is named Stella and his girlfriend's name is Stella. And I said something to him. He's like, that's why I was trying to get you to give her a different name. I'm like, sorry. Should have said it out loud. So
Yeah, you weren't talking to me, so.
you weren't talking to me. And I just wanted, so I put the link, by the way, for the early bird membership in the chat. I'm showing up as Cheryl. Sorry, there was a long story to the Zoom thing, but the link is in there. And I just wanted to, Liz said, I don't see if you saw it, but she was in my group when I was going through the whole thing with Isaiah where he wasn't talking to me. And what she said, which is so wonderful, thank you, Liz, is her strength and openness so helped me later when I had a really rough time with my amazing strong-willed kid. And, I could have just not told them what was going on. I could have, I was the group leader and I could have put myself in this position and kept them in this position. But we were all moms together. And while I was the group leader and I was facilitating and I did have my, my input when they were having issues to help lead them to where, I hoped that they would make these decisions and see these changes on their own. And I, could have felt the need. I did, I could have thought this makes me seem like not qualified. That could have been my thought. But instead, I just was like, you know what? We check in at the beginning of every session that we did. We would check in, and I checked in and said, Isaiah's not talking to me. Here's where I am. This is where I'm at. Isaiah's not talking to me. And a week later, I checked in and said, guess what? He's still not talking to me. So I went through this whole thing with them, almost he didn't talk to me for 5 weeks. And I was like, they came, I think it was like 3 weeks of him not talking to me when I was with them. So we even stayed connected about it. They were like, keep us posted, let us know what's happening. And, they supported me too. So, it is.
Well, there's vulnerability, and we think that we're supposed to arrive, like what you said. I felt like maybe I shouldn't be going through this, it would disqualify me or something. And the truth is, we all go through different things with our kids.
Yep.
We all go through different struggles, and we need support as we're going through them to be able to navigate it. And I'll just say one other thing, and then we have a question.
Mhm.
I also am a big believer that when we have support and we have a safe place we can go and we can express what's going on, it is going to lower our own anxiety and our own reactivity, so that when we are in that hot spot with our kids, we are not going to be reacting. It's not going to be so big, because we come and we kind of, we hold the bucket, so to speak,
Mhm.
and you kind of can get it all out. And then when you go back into it with your kid, you don't have all this pent up feeling and emotion. You've already been able to take it and dump it, because here's the thing, our kids are mostly our dumping ground. We're their dumping ground. So they're coming and they're dumping, and you could just feel like, right? And we need to have a place where we can take it and we can dump it out. And so I'm so passionate about this. I love it. It gets me up in the morning. I know it does Jen too, where we just really want to provide a place where you can really transform your life and break generational patterns. I mean, of, things that we pass down generations, where we're learning how to do things differently, and it's going to turn things around with our kids. So
I also want to say to that point, Cheryl, is that it also, without also, like the getting the lighter, the getting rid of the anxiety and stuff, it also gives you this strength to carry on, so to speak. It's like you try something, it doesn't work the way you want it to work. You come back and you're like, I tried this and it didn't work. And people come around you and you're like, you can do it. You can do it. It might take more than one try. It might take 10 tries, but you can do it. You can stick to your guns. Like a lot of times that's what it is. It's like someone mentioned, because I see this 17-year-old almost adult, which is what I've been going through the last 2 years with my 19-year-old. And, you go and you try something, and when they're that age and that strong-willed, you're going to fall. I mean, they're going to knock you down a bunch before you figure out like what's the right way to do this. And also you have all these moms coming around you saying, you can do it. You can do it.
yeah, yeah. And we so much care about our families and love our kids, and it's to invest in ourselves and invest in our family. That's the most important thing we can do. So we cannot change things if we don't have support. I mean, it just doesn't magically happen. We have to learn these things and change these things about ourselves. So, and learn how to do it differently. So are you going into, so I hope you will
Yeah.
sign up. Let us know when you sign up. We would love to welcome you. We have new members joining and we're so excited. We're so excited. And we're doing we have our coaching call on Friday and we're doing our big kickoff call on Monday. So I'm really excited about that. Okay. So how do you respond when your teen tells you that everything you say do is annoying them? Even when I'm trying to just show interest in her day, I do notice it is worse when she's stressed, but she is so unkind and hurtful. It made me cry. Oh, I know that feeling. It's like, get out of my room, leave me alone. You're so irritating. I can speak to this, and Jen, I would love to hear what you're going to say, but I don't know. Thank you for saying this because you're verbalizing how so many moms can feel with kids this age. And I always say they're like feral cats. So, or turtles. I love those two different analogies. And so when we come at them, they want space at this age. And I guess my quick answer might be to create a little space, almost like a little mystery, where she's expecting you to come at her and ask her questions. I remember my daughter, when she went away to college, she stopped calling me and she told my husband, I'm not calling her because she's badgering me with questions. And I was so hurt. I was like, why doesn't she tell me that? We had a good conversation about that. But anyway, you know, we can tend to badger them and they want that space. So we have to create that space. So if she's giving you, what she's doing is she's giving you feedback and it really hurts and it hurts our feelings. But I would just give a little bit of space, give her a little downtime, especially when she comes out of her room or she comes home at the end of the day. They say they come out of their rooms and one of the biggest complaints of teens is that's when we hit them up. Did you do your homework or did you do that or did you do this? And also, I think when she tells you you're annoying, you might even use some humor because my son said this to me. He said, I was annoying. I was weird. And I, I know. And really, this was not that long ago. And I was so hurt and I wanted to cry in the car, but I did not want to show him I was crying. And I talked to a friend of mine and she has 4 boys and I said, what do you do? And she said, I just make a joke. Like, I know I'm weird. I know I'm annoying. And so I also think maybe you can bring some humor or call yourself out like, ah, I know, there I am doing it again, asking you all these questions. I just really miss you. You can be playful with it as well and give space. And then once you've given some space, when she comes downstairs or something, say nothing, just be with her. I think we underestimate the power of that and see if she will naturally start opening up because they start opening up and we go, oh, they're talking to me. And then they go, they're that turtle. Then they suck in again and they don't want to talk to us because we're so excited they're talking to us. So that would just be off the top of my head. Those are some thoughts that are coming to me. Yeah, remember, Stacy, it's not about you. You have the choice to take it personally. And we're going to take it personally still. I just think that because we love our kids so much, so it's not like you're not going to, it's that we coach ourselves. And we talk a lot about that in the inner circle. So reminding ourselves, okay, this is not personal. She needs a lot of space. I am kind of weird right now to her. Um, you know, my kids did not want to be seen with me at certain ages, mostly in the middle school years. I was embarrassing. And she will come out of it. I just want to give you that hope. Would you add anything to it, Jen?
I mean, I would say for sure, like the two things I might add is that we all have a dream of this amazing relationship with our kids where they want to tell us everything. We want to be that mom where the kid comes and sits and tells you everything that happened that day or all the things with their boyfriend or girlfriend. And I think that sitcoms have ruined us for being parents. That's what I think. Sitcoms have ruined us. And then the other thing I was just gonna like anecdotally is that when one of the things I learned from doing all this work was when Isaiah would get in the car, I would pick him up from school. I would say nothing. I would say, hey, and that would be it. And I know a lot of people in our community and in workshops have said, like, but when I get in the car, they don't talk to me, they put their AirPods on, they do whatever. And I was like, okay, if that's what he wants to do, then that's what he wants to do. And he might sometimes get in with his AirPods in, or we might just sit there, and I would always have music on and just have the music playing. And after a while, when he realized I wasn't going to come at him when he got in the car, he did share more. And
Yeah.
sometimes it was like we were almost home.
Mm-hmm.
There were times we would pull in the driveway and he would be like, "Can we go get McDonald's?" And I would want to be like, "We just got home. I don't want to turn around and go to McDonald's." But then I would be like, "Wait, he said words to you and now you'll have more time in the car," you know? So then I was like, "Okay, sure." And then the other thing too about the like coming home, I started doing that too. When he came home, I'd be like, "Hey, dude, let me know if you want a snack or anything." And he'd be like, "Okay." And he'd go up to his room. And then, like, I might not see him until the morning, and I would just have to be okay with that. He would, like, if he had volleyball and he picked up Chipotle on the way home, he'd take his Chipotle and go downstairs into the basement where his Xbox was, or upstairs in his room. And I wouldn't see him until morning. And I wouldn't hear anything. And I would have to assume his homework is done. Because, by the way, guys, that not doing his homework with him in sixth grade went all the way. I never did homework with him a day through high school, anything. So I wouldn't know. Is he doing his homework? Is he not? And I would just have to let him go. But you know what? He'd come in my room at like midnight. And I know a lot of boy moms say this is true, but I know girl moms do it too. But a lot of boy moms say he'd come in my room at midnight. He'd come sit in my bed and just start talking and talking. And I'd be like,
High time.
I know, but so I mean, that it pays off. It's hard. It's hard, 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 but it pays off. They don't not want to talk to you. I think that's a
Yes.
really important thing to remember, is that they don't not want to talk to you. They want to talk to you on their terms, when they think you're going to listen to them and not pepper them with questions and not tell them what to do.
Yeah.
Sometimes, I mean, Isaiah has said that, "Mom, sometimes I just want you to listen." I'll be like, "Okay, sorry." Like, on the times I'm not doing it. Like, "Okay,
Yeah.
sorry. I'm
We
just
have
listening."
an 80-20 rule that we say listen 80% of the time, talk 20, and they will start opening up.
Mhm.
It works, and just keep the faith that it's going to work. If you can listen more, if you can just not talk, they start coming out. The feral cat starts coming out, looking around, and they will eventually. All the moms. I don't think there's ever been one mom that has ever been in the inner circle. I mean, some don't always tell us, but that hasn't said, "Oh my gosh, I'm shocked. This really does work." So
You know,
just,
so
um,
Michelle had a question, but she just left, that,
okay,
like, really I want to answer, so that if she goes back to the replays, is that
okay,
okay?
yes, 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 absolutely.
So she asked,
Where
when you
did you see? Is it
it's
way up?
in chat, because at first, when I didn't see another question in the Q&A, I started reading the chat. So it was in the chat. And she just said, "When you
Oh,
let him stay home from family dinners, how did you deal with all the comments from your family? Why didn't he come?"
ooh.
So that's really good. And Michelle, I'll actually send you a message, because she's in the inner circle, isn't
Yeah,
she?
she just
Yeah.
joined.
Yeah. So I know, right? So
And
what
Jen did put the link in.
Yes, I did. So if
Put it
anybody
in,
needs
Jen.
it again, tell me, but it's towards the bottom. So what I what I did was, in this situation, I just told them the truth. He didn't want to come. So I wasn't going to make him. I literally said he didn't want to come, so I wasn't going to make him. And my brother-in-law is harsh. And he was like, "Well, he should have to come, and he should, this is family dinner." Because it was Friday night was family dinner night. It was the whole family would get together for dinner. We make Josie come, even though she doesn't want to come. Well, she was an angel for a very long time. Until she hit 13, she was an angel. So, so,
And now they're paying for all that judgment.
yes,
It's,
exactly.
it comes
I
back
say
and
that
bites you,
all,
boy.
by the way, yeah, I say that all the time. She's 3 years younger than Isaiah. So if you can imagine, when he was 13 causing trouble, she was still a sweet little 10-year-old. So, I would just say it like it is. I think that there has to come a time where, if you're going to start living these things that you're learning, you're also going to have to start living it out. You know, you're doing it in and you're going to have to do it out. You don't have to tell them, you know, these are all the horrible things that are happening when I try and make them come. You don't have to say that. But I think, you know, for me, I said, you know what, I gave him a choice. I told him he could come or he could not come because, and I said, you know what, he's 13 and I mean, he's a teen. I actually, what I started saying is he's a normal 13-year-old. That's what I started saying. He is a normal 13-year-old. This is normal 13 behavior. If he doesn't want to come, I'm not going to make him come because he's going to make us all miserable. And I
Yeah.
left it at that. And I stood my ground. I didn't let their upset around it affect me because I knew that it was changing my relationship with Isaiah.
Yep.
And it
Yep.
was more important than anything else.
Yep. We talk a lot about that in Inner Circle too, and just families. And Ishal, I hope I'm saying, Ishal, I hope I'm saying here. She said, I so wish that extended family members could just keep their opinions to themselves.
Yeah.
And it is hard. And we can feel really defensive because the truth is we're struggling with it. We're working on it. So I found that the less defensive I could be, the more helpful. Like, I know. I would sometimes say, I know I don't like it either. We're
Yep.
working on it.
Yep. That's exactly what I would say. Yeah. You know what? I hear you. I would say that more because I wouldn't agree with them most of the time. So I'd be like, yep, I hear you. And sometimes I would say, you know what? This is my choice. I would
Yeah,
literally
yeah,
just say, you know
yeah,
what? This is my choice.
yep,
And I
yeah,
hear what you're saying, but this is my choice.
yeah. And you
So,
just stay with yourself. I love that, Jen.
yeah.
So,
So,
okay, we'll give about 5 more minutes.
yeah.
Okay. Yeah, but did you want to read? I have one
Oh,
here
yeah.
in
So, right. Michelle has a question in the Q&A, which I think both of us can speak to this because Isaiah's 19 now and in college. But any thoughts re older teens, early 20s who expressly do not want to hear advice from us re unnecessary or necessary, sorry, necessary adulting skills, financial, personal hygiene, care of personal. Oh, I can speak to some of this. We know they can learn through natural life consequences, but am worried about the legal and or financial implications for their futures
Yeah. Oh man.
to this because we've
What?
both we can both you've experienced it to the larger scale, I've experienced it to a smaller scale, so probably Cheryl should speak to it more. I mean, I have a son who's 19 who still barely brushes his teeth, so when he came home for fall break, I said to him, you know, you've got a toothbrush in there. After the first day when I knew he didn't brush his teeth, I was like, you know, because I had his extra toothbrush. He took one with him and I had his extra electric one in the cabinet and I took it out before he got home so he would have his toothbrush. I told him he didn't need to bring one. So when I noticed he didn't brush his teeth, I was like, you know, toothbrush is in there. That's
Yeah,
it.
it's very hard.
You
And
gotta let him, right?
very
That's something
hard.
you have to let him.
And you watch it. I had one of my kids, oh boy, and I'm a big hygiene person. They weren't washing their hair. And they might come to go to a social function. Maybe their hair wasn't clean and things are kind of like this for a while. They've since grown out of it. Oh my goodness. And just, and the money piece being hard and all of those things. Yeah, we have to let them learn. We have to let go of it. And especially the hygiene thing is so hard. And what I learned is it was more about a lot of it was more about my own, what I'll call kind of image managing, like my image. What are people going to think of me? My kid is, not, washing their hair every day and so I had to let go of a lot of that. Um, I did sometimes say something, but what I realized is okay, I've already said that. To what end? You know, um, and here's one of them calling right now.
I was like, what's that sound? You can
Yeah,
barely hear it,
yeah.
but
Uh, um, and so anyway, just to what end? What am I expecting? Is it really going to work
Mhm.
by saying something? And I realized, no, it's just putting them down. It's just, showing that I don't believe that they're capable. Now, here's the thing. Sometimes we can say, hey, like finances or something, I'm just a little concerned. Do you want some support from me? I'm noticing, we use this formula, like I'm noticing that whatever it may be, like you need to pay your insurance on your car, you need insurance for your car. Sometimes they need some coaching from us because they are slowly moving to adulthood. And so that's where the discernment, that's where we work on that in the inner circle. I can't go into all that right now, but you have to discern where do I step in? Where do I step back? And as they get older, sometimes they do need a little coaching, but we want to ask. We don't want to say, oh, here's what you need to do. Because that feels very disrespectful, actually, when somebody keeps, telling us, think about us, like, here's what you need to do. It's kind of like, well, who says so? We feel disrespected. So I would say that if they're at your home, in your home, chores, they're in their 20s, that would be a whole different thing. If they're living in your home, then you have to think about what are your expectations while they're in your home. So there's a lot there.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Um, I would love to respond just really quickly, and I don't know, you could feed
For the
into, but
last one.
yeah, the how do you react to them swearing a 12-year-old? So this is one of those boundaries, right? We talked about boundaries, and this is a tough one because we didn't really get into consequences, but we had a family meeting in our house, and I just said, on a good day, not in a time where he was angry or whatever, and I'd be like, we have to have a family meeting. It was like on a good day, I really think it would be a good idea for us to have a family meeting because I realize that sometimes we're arguing about things. And if we kind of knew what the expectations were ahead of time, and me too, I would always say, me too, you can come to the table with things that you think I need to work on. And, so let's make a date to do that. And one of the things that I did have a conversation with about, he wasn't necessarily swearing, but he was saying mean things. And just fast forward, I can't give you the whole thing, but the boundary was it's not okay to say these words. Like this language is hurtful and it's not a way we talk in our house and it's not okay. So let's think of, this is something you're going to have to work on, and let's think of some consequences that you think would be good if you swore when you're not supposed to. And let him come to the table with what he thinks is a consequence that's acceptable to him. And you might say, you know what? That doesn't seem like much of a consequence. What do you think about this? But one of the things we say is that the consequence should fit the crime, right? So you don't like ground them for 2 weeks if they say one swear word. You might say you lose your Xbox for a day or, your phone for a day or whatever. But, over punishing's not going to work. I mean, that's punishment, not a consequence, and that's never going to work. And the other thing too is sometimes it's in the moment where you just have to say, that's not okay. And that kind of language is not acceptable in our home.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you want to speak to it, Cheryl, too, in your own.
Yeah, I love it when the mom said, I think I just felt, I may have just found my tribe. Well, I hope you're going to join us because we'd love you to be a part of the tribe. This is why I also love the group and the inner circle because you get different thoughts from people. So what Jen said, I agree with 100%. And having gone through that myself as well with a swearing teen, I would also say they are angry about something, right? They're swearing, so they're angry about something, and that's how they're getting their anger out and they're expressing. And I'm just a little curious, maybe are they feeling like they're heard? Are they feeling like they have to start swearing because they want somebody to hear them? I don't know, but I would have that conversation. I would say, when you're angry, I want to hear, what's going on with you. I want to hear what you're angry about. You don't want to shut down the anger. What you want to help him or her do is to be able to learn to manage and regulate the anger. So they don't know how to, and their amygdalas, hopefully you came to the 3-day. If you didn't, you want to get the replays. Um, their amygdala is lit up right now, and their prefrontal cortex is not fully developed. So they don't have those breaks in steering for their emotions. So by saying, hey, I want to know when you're angry, but swearing's not okay. So you're saying, I want to know what you're angry about, because they have to learn a different way. And so in addition to what Jen said, I would also say it's not that you don't want them to talk about what they're angry about. You don't want them swearing because it's disrespectful. So that's what I would say.
Yes, agreed, 100%.
Yeah. So yay, she just signed up.
I know, I saw. Yeah.
Yay. Well, Cher, we're gonna go.
Yeah.
But I'm so happy that you all came and that you stayed on so long. And so share a takeaway. And Jen, maybe you can give the link. I tried to put the link in there again, and I don't know why it's not working for me. I must not know how to do it.
Okay.
Yeah, so we are so excited. Those of you that have signed up, and you'll also get an email. But when you get the email, it's not going to be the early bird. So you want to make sure you get the early bird. So if you sign up now and sign up in like the next hour, you will get the early bird pricing. Okay, she just put it into the chat again. So make sure to get in. Remember, it's 14-day. It's like such a no-brainer to me. Like it's 14-day no money back guarantee.
Which we've never done before, by the way.
Yeah.
But we realized that, it seems like a big expense, although I did the math and it is less than $3 a day. So I'm sure many of us spend more money than that on coffee a week, for instance, even if you don't get coffee 7 days a week, if you got it 5 days a week. I mean, how much does a coffee at Starbucks cost now? Like $8 or something?
Yeah.
So,
Well,
but-
there's no investment more than our family,
Right. Yeah.
And it is so worth it.
Yeah.
Krista is asking, yay, Krista, for the link again.
Yeah. Do you
And
see it?
here, if it's
Just-
hard, if somebody's walking or something,
Yeah.
it's www.momswitweensandteensresources.com/. Oh, we have an EB in there. EB, that means early bird.
Yes, early bird dash membership dash 2024. That's a lot to remember.
Yeah, it
If
is.
anybody is in here and wants to join and is for,
You could also email me, Cheryl@momsofteensandteens.
yeah, I just put mine in too. So Jen at
And-
momsofteensandteens.com or Cheryl with an S.
Yeah, Cheryl, SHERYL. So we'll give you the link too. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
we're so excited.
Yay. I know. And Michelle, we're so glad that you joined. It's so great. So yeah. And I would just say, you guys, like I said before, I'm not exaggerating. I am 100% sure that Isaiah would have wound up, because let me just tell you, we called the police a couple times and they wanted him to go into an inpatient program. So I'm 100% sure that he would have wound up in some sort of a program when it got to the point where he was too big for me, or, it was like the defiance, not going to, refusing to go to school, whatever it was. If that had been a real thing, if I hadn't had the support, my family, I mean, Isaiah and I are so close now, you guys. We didn't ever
Yeah,
realize.
you know what? If I
Okay.
share in the chat, like what a takeaway is, while Jen's sharing, but Christine will give you early bird. Okay, won't allow her to follow the membership link, and she's not going to be home until 8 tonight. We want you, and we will make it work for you.
Oh,
Okay?
Christine, yeah, Christine, with the
There's two
K.
Christines.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Christine with the K, can you, email me and I will double check for you. So Jen at momsofteensandteens.com. And I see you asked host and panelists, so that's, nobody else saw that, but that's totally fine. So, okay, yes, I see. Okay, and Christine with a C, just email us if you don't have the link. If you don't, yeah,
Okay.
so
Yeah.
that's fine.
Or
But-
the email that you got to come to
Oh, yeah,
this.
just respond.
Reply.
Right, exactly. Just hit reply.
Yeah.
But yeah. So I just want to say that, you guys, like, to give you guys some chance to click or to give takeaways, that, it's not an exaggeration. Like, I know you can come on stuff and be like, oh yeah, but it really isn't an exaggeration. And now Isaiah and I, like, our, I was afraid once upon a time, many, many years ago, that he wouldn't be able to go to college. I mean, I thought he wouldn't graduate from high school, but he wouldn't be able to go to college. He's a freshman in college right now. He
How
was,
are you going? Are you comfortable doing that?
yeah,
I'm
yeah,
so proud of
he goes to High Point University in High Point, North Carolina. It's an amazing school. Um,
Who's been president of his class.
Yes, he was president. Yeah, so he was actually all 4 years in high school. He was in student government. His senior year, he was president um, of the student government, and he was the spokesperson for the high school. At a private school. He was at a private school, and he was spokesperson to. Actually made a movie for the incoming, like to what I'm trying. I can't remember what it's called, but like when they wanted to have new people be admissions promotion, I don't know what it's called, you know what I mean, new people come in, and also when families would come in, he was the person that talked about the school, and he's become this just like
Oh,
wonderful kid who presents himself well. And a lot of people who might be on here who either ambassador, thank you, Christine, a lot of people who might be on here who have been on this thing before, like when we did this 6 months ago, or who are in the community, you guys got to see him because he was home then, and so he would come and he would do a Q&A, and they got to ask questions. And actually, if anybody has any questions for him, please email me. I'll pass them on to him, because he has become a very well spoken. He can talk about what were the mistakes that he felt like I made. He can say, he says the number one thing was the listening. He will say the number one thing was the listening, that's what made the biggest difference in our relationship. And yeah, he has just turned into, he's now at school. He's got a leadership fellows. He's about to get an internship for his second semester with one of the government agencies in the High Point area. I mean, he did it. He succeeded. And guess what? When he left, I was okay. I was okay. And I think that's one of the things too that we learn, is that we have spent the last 18 years getting them ready for this moment, and they will be ready. And we have to believe that they will be ready, and we have to believe in them enough to let them do it on their own. We have to believe in them enough to let go, let them make their mistakes, but they will know we believe in them if we're not on top of them. It's not being on top of them that makes them realize that we believe in them. It's
and it
just
causes, yeah, that.
and I let him choose what college he wanted to go to. I let him choose. So many parents are like, these are your choices, or you can't go there, or whatever, you have to go here. I let him choose his college, and it couldn't have been a better choice. And so, they make it, they can do it. He also calls me. I can't tell you how many people I know who are like, be prepared for them to never call you and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, okay, we'll see. And I thought, that's not really Isaiah. That's not our relationship. And sure enough, it isn't. And guess what? I learned from Cheryl's mistake, by the way. I learned from her.
That's good. That's why I tell the
totally did.
stories.
I do not call him and ask him a million questions. I do not. I said to him though, and this is something some parents are like, don't do this. I said, I expect one phone call from you a week. You don't have to call me more than that. You don't even have to tell me anything if you don't want to. Just tell me you're alive and you're eating. That's basically all I want to know. But instead, he calls me once, twice, 3 times a week, whatever, and we just chat. We literally just chat. And I don't say, do you have a girlfriend? Or are you
It's so
getting
hard not to
grades?
do, especially when they're not sharing.
I
That's
didn't
what,
ask him about his grades. I haven't asked him about his grades.
good job. See, we can encourage. So let me just say this, because we've been on here for 2 hours.
Oh, shoot.
Look at these
Sorry, guys.
amazing moms. But no, I mean, it's been good. It's been really good. And everybody's been engaging. So many of you. And Christine, I miss you. I see your email there. I miss you. So we'll check out. your email, and yes, you're still in, and all of that. And then Vanessa, due to time, please email me at Cheryl@momsofteensandteens.com. She's asking any advice for divorced parents. And it's really hard. And it's really hard when you're up against that with an ex and you have different views on things and you feel like you're fighting a losing battle and you're the bad guy and the other one's a good guy and allowing all kinds of things to go on. It's just really discouraging. And yeah, and then encouraging bad behavior towards the other parent, the whole gaslighting thing. I would just say, I hope you'll join the inner circle. If you can do it, I hope you will. There's other moms in the group that are in your shoes, maybe not exactly, but going through really tough stuff, being a single mom. And just know that you fighting the good fight, meaning fighting for your relationship with your kids, fighting for yourself, being more of who you want to be. That is what's going to, your kid is watching you. Even though they might be telling you, and a lot of moms on here, I'm sure you've heard, I wish our house was like so-and-so's, I wish that you were like Mrs. Jones, or, you hear your kids say those things and it's so hurtful at the time, but they're watching you. And my daughter just said to me, good thing I used to go to that one house and it was like the Mrs. Jones. And I found out, of course, she was going to Mrs. Jones's house. There wasn't any rules. And she said, that was really not good. And their kid isn't doing well now because of that. She knew even back then. And so my point being, your kid knows. You just keep being who you think they need you to be, who you want to be. And I believe that that is what really impacts our kids more than anything else. So that's what I would say to that. Yeah. But reach out to me and I hope you'll join. So, all right, parting words. Anybody want to share what you're walking away with today? You're welcome, Vanessa. Any takeaways? My takeaway is how much we need each other.
Yeah.
Yeah. Christine, good reminders. Yeah. Just grateful for feeling seen and understood. Isn't that so true, Michelle? Just like that's why we talk about our own pain, because we want to see you and let you know that we see you, we hear you. And just that alone, how much better you can feel. That's the same thing for our kids. Nancy, thank you. She just joined. Yay! And Nancy, your name is a name I've been seeing for a while. And so I am so excited. So yay, 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 yay. So cannot wait to meet all of you and really think about it. Okay. Email Jen@momsofteensandteens.com or me. We will give you, when are we going to give them to until for the early bird?
Well, I think anybody who's on here will give you till, midnight because you're here. Nobody else will know. Who else is going to know? So
Yes, it's just
it's
us,
just you guys. I know. It's just this,
a
nobody else.
special group. Yeah.
Mhm.
So until midnight. So really, really think about it. Really think, okay, I can do 1 month and just see, okay, how it can make a difference. And we're kicking off next week. And then we can tell you everything. You've got the app. And then we go through this and it's at your own pace. I didn't want to do a little slide, but we go through all this and you learn all these amazing tools. And then you have the support, you have the coaching call every week, you have the meetup in person every week, and then you have an option to join an actual in-person Zoom group led by leaders if you want to, but that's an extra expense. But some moms even want more intensive. So that's just an option, but many moms don't, and they absolutely love it. So yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you everybody for coming. And we're so excited to see our new members come in and welcome you. And you will be getting a replay. And so know that as well. Okay. All right. Great being with all of you. All
Bye,
right. Thanks,
guys.
Jen. Thanks, everybody. Okay. Bye. You're welcome. Bye.